Hey guys, it's Jenny at Liberty Canine Rescue Ranch. I have my husband here with me, Joe. Today we are here to talk a little bit about our dog Duncan and his recent passing, who Duncan was and how we came to the decision to let him cross the Rainbow Bridge and kind of the process and then the aftermath. And it's just about 2 weeks since it happened, so it's still a little bit fresh, so I apologize if I get emotional. This is really hard for me. I got Duncan.
You're good, you got it.
I got Duncan when I was a police officer in Superior, Wisconsin. I did that for 3 years. And when I was a young officer, I went on an animal abuse call, or suspected animal abuse. Working midnights, and a call came in that somebody in an apartment complex thought that the tenant above them was abusing their dog. They could hear all kinds of commotion, and this person had been dealing with animal control about this individual and Duncan many times, trying to get Duncan removed from this individual because he was being abusive and neglecting Duncan and all that. Two of us ended up going on the call, and I was nervous that the dog was going to be aggressive because he was getting abused, so why wouldn't he be aggressive? And we knew it was a pit bull mix. So my initial thought was, I really hope I don't have to shoot this dog if he comes at us, because that would break my heart. I'm a huge dog lover. We get to the apartment and we're in the hallway, and from underneath the doorway coming into the hallway are these huge shards of glass. And so we knock on the door opens right away, and from way in the back of the apartment I see this flash of brindle just coming at us, and I'm like, oh man, please don't be aggressive. As it was Duncan, and he ended up yeeting himself at me and licking my face. So we found out quite quickly that he was not aggressive at all. He was pretty emaciated. He had cuts all over his body. There was poop and pee all over the apartment. The guy didn't take him outside to go to the bathroom. He just had him toilet inside. It wasn't food. Found out later that he tried to drown Duncan in the bathtub. He had a broken leg. Anyways, long story short, I was a rookie officer. I think I was still on probation, and I wasn't totally sure. Animal cruelty laws are a pretty uncommon thing to deal with as a police officer. I knew I wasn't going to leave Duncan there, so I told the guy, he was some 19-year-old kid. I said, hey, I'm taking your dog. Like, you can't have him. Like, he's obviously abused. Like, we'll figure out the rest of this stuff later with the animal control officer during the day. So I ended up loading Duncan up into my squad car, and I had a Crown Vic because I'm almost 40. So I was in my Crown Vic, and I had the slider door open so that I could talk to him and whatever. And by the time we got to the shelter, he crawled through the window and was sitting in my lap. And he was just really sweet. Not in good shape, but he was just so sweet. And so I get him to the animal shelter, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we have a key to there. So I go and I spent a little bit of time with him there because he was so happy and sweet, and I just felt so bad for him. So I ended up setting him up there. We fill out an intake form, and then, we leave him there. Then I went back and did some research on animal cruelty, and I was like, I'm taking that motherfucker to jail. So I went back and I arrested him, and we get to the jail, and I'm doing my paperwork, and he says he would talk to me. He's like, basically tells me that he had rescued Duncan from his cousin because his cousin was abusive to him. So by the time Duncan was 10 months old, he'd had 2 abusive owners, and he was still so happy and friendly. And so by the time my shift ended that morning at 6 a.m., I knew like I was taking that dog no matter what, he was gonna be mine. Ended up charging the guy with a couple things, and went and saw Duncan a few times at the shelter, and there's a Douglas County Humane Society in their old building, and then he ended up getting transferred to Animal Allies in Duluth, where they took care of him. They have a vet there, so they rehabbed him and fixed his leg and got him healthy. And I went to see him a couple times while he was in both of those shelters, and I dealt with the county attorney's office and the prosecutors, and I said, hey, like, I want that dog. He's had 2 abusive owners. He's a pit bull mix. He's gonna get picked up by some gangbanger, and they're gonna try to turn him into a turd or a bait dog. Like, he doesn't need to go through that again. I let them know that I wanted him, and they told me that as long as everything went through court and Duncan was basically like relinquished or surrendered to the shelter, that I could take him. So then I was dealing with the shelter and everything, and I ended up getting to bring him home then, finally. And he was just such a happy dog. He was a lunatic. It's hard to remember what he was like back then, because, you know, he was almost 16 when he died. So, but when he was young, man, he was wild. He would be bouncing off the walls. And this was before I was a dog trainer, of course. And so I did the best I could. But even for all the mistakes that I made, Dunkin just was a phenomenal dog. And that's not necessarily anything that had to do with me. It's just a testament to his temperament.
He was a good-tempered dog.
Nothing was done right for him at the beginning of his life. He was abused, he was neglected, he wasn't potty trained, he wasn't fed. Probably never met a gentle touch from a person. Somebody tried to drown him in the bathtub. He never was afraid of a bath. He trusted me. Had an incredible temperament, and I'm gonna fast forward. When I was an instructor down at Starmark in Texas, I used to talk about Dunkin a lot because we talk about temperament in dogs, and temperament is not something we can change. It's, you know, genetics, it's how they're wired. And Dunkin is a prime example of good genetics. He was just a good dog, like good natured, didn't have a mean bone in his body. Even though he was abused by people, he never feared a single person. He was just happy to his core, and he loved and he trusted. It was really special. And so I like to use him as an example, a good example of temperament. Everything was done wrong, and he just turned out to be the best dog I've ever worked with or ever owned. So that's a good example of temperament and genetics. And then there's the other example where even sometimes you can do everything right, but the genetics aren't great, and the dog just doesn't have a good temperament. And even though you do everything right, it still turns out and grows up to be a little bit quirky or have some issues. So Dunkin was just that dog that kind of had it all. He was really confident, friendly, social, wicked smart. Like, he's one of the smartest dogs I ever trained. He knew over 50 tricks, and obviously his obedience was incredible. Dunkin home when I was a police officer. We ended up then going to Oklahoma for a stint. I won't get into my bad life choices, but it was for a guy. Not this one. We're gonna take a boat with his nephews, my fiance at the time, and we were gonna go to the lake. And I was gonna bring Dunkin in the truck with us. And he's like, he can just ride in the bed of the truck. And I'm like, well, he's never ridden in the bed of a truck. He doesn't know what to do. Like, what if he jumps out? He won't jump out. People do it here all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but he's never done it. Anyways, I lost that battle. That's not a battle I'll ever lose again. But so we take Dunkin in the truck bed and we're pulling the boat. We're not on a highway, but still. He looks in the rear view mirror and Dunkin is sitting on the fender. It's a dually truck. So Dunkin is sitting on the fender. So instead of slowing to a stop so we could safely get Dunkin in the truck, he jerked the wheel to try to make Dunkin fall into the bed of the truck, but he did it the wrong way and Dunkin fell into the road. He stopped, and when I got out of the truck, I was freaking out. And anyways, Dunkin was okay. He had a couple scrapes, but he was totally fine. I was mortified. I've never been more like angry in my entire life, I don't think, till the next part, which is then my ex-fiance picks Dunkin up and in a fit of rage tosses him like a sack of potatoes into the bed of his truck, and Dunkin hit his leg on the fifth wheel hitch and it snapped his leg. His other leg that hadn't been broken by his previous owner. So Dunkin had both of his back legs broken at a young age. I feel super guilty about that second one because I feel like I let it happen. And anyways, of course we go to the emergency vet and get him all fixed up. So that was one event for Dunkin. Where I was a trainer, he had encounters with coyotes and barbed wire. Before he knew how to be a dog, he'd follow our farm dog around and he'd somehow always end up getting hurt. And then fast forward, I had to get out of law enforcement, and I decided to pursue dog training, and that's when I went to Starmark to be a student. And Dunkin was one of the dogs that was assigned to me. You get to bring a personal dog, so he was assigned to me to take through the program and train him start to finish. And then I was also assigned a rescue dog that I trained. And Dunkin is just incredible. All my classmates and the instructors complimented him like on his temperament, and he was just so easy to train. Like he made it so easy. It was almost too easy. He's just like the gold standard. Didn't want to make bad choices, wanted to be a good boy. He wasn't anxious or insecure or clingy or needy. He was just one of the most balanced dogs I've ever met. Just had a way to get other dogs to play with him that were fearful or aggressive. He helped me rehab a lot of other dogs. Through my journey at Starmark as a student, I found that I thought I would really have an interest in therapy dog work and like trick training and agility. So once I graduated from Starmark, I did an internship at a facility in Texas for 12 weeks, and Dunkin got to go with me every day, and we did lots of fun stuff, and we continued his training, and we did some scent work and all kinds of different things. And then I came home and started my business, and all throughout my business, I utilized him as a demo dog to show clients like what obedience can look like or how your dog can behave. Again, I used him so much to help socialize and rehab other dogs. He could get any dog to play with him. He was so naturally polite and appropriate and non-threatening, but also confident. A way that even dogs that didn't like other dogs, they just loved him. And we ended up doing lots of trick stuff and titles, and we did CGC, and he would run on the treadmill. He did all kinds of things. He really got into therapy work, so we got certified through Pet Partners. That was like my first real introduction into the therapy world. Into therapy work, so we got certified through Pet Partners. And we went on hundreds and hundreds of visits. That dog probably logged thousands and thousands of hours working under a therapy role. We would go to schools, airports, assisted living facilities. We would get some people asking us to make like private visits if they have something going on in their family. I have a specific story that I like to talk about. My family does foster care. My parents used to take in teenage girls. My mom called me at like 11 o'clock and she said, "Hey, one of our girls is just having an absolute meltdown. Do you think you can bring Dunkin up here?" And I was like, "Yep." So I get up to their house, and it's an 11-year-old girl, and she's sitting on the floor, and she is rocking back and forth, screaming and crying, hitting herself, pulling her hair. She'd been that way for like an hour, and my parents had tried everything. They have specialized training and de-escalation and stuff, but they could not get her to come out of it. I just walked in, and I just said, "Hey, I have Dunkin here," seeing if she would perk up or respond. She didn't come out of it, so I was just like, talking isn't gonna do anything. So Dunkin walks in, wagging his tail, not missing a beat, that someone's just, having a meltdown here and screaming and hitting herself. And I just put him into a down, and she was kind of sitting cross-legged like this on the floor, and I put him into a down right in front of her legs, and he's naturally a leaner. So he just kind of like leaned into her, and instantly she put her hand out. And then she was still kind of rocking back and forth and screaming and crying, and Duncan's just laying there wagging his tail, kind of looking up at her, and I'm, telling him he's being a good boy. Soon enough, she's doing this. And then soon enough, she quits crying. She's not hyperventilating. She's talking to Duncan, and probably within 5 minutes, she was having a totally lucid conversation with me. It was a very special experience for me to really see Dunkin pull someone out of their time of need, which he's done for me thousands of times in my life. Other things that I really wanted to talk about tonight was how we decided to let Dunkin cross the Rainbow Bridge, because I believe it's really important to talk about as pet owners, because we all have to go through it, and this is my first real experience with my own dogs. Dunkin was a pit bull boxer mix, and he'd previously had those 2 back broken legs. He had developed some allergies. When he was it was close to when we met, he was probably 10.
Yeah.
And that's when he got to mild hip dysplasia, and then they found a bone spur in his knee where his leg was previously broken. So he had a little bit of a hitch in his giddy up, and you could tell that like he wasn't 100%, but he would still jog with the 4-wheeler and do tricks. Like he lived for tricks. He loved agility. So he would still play with, our other dogs in the home and do all that kind of stuff. I don't know, 2 years ago, we were going for a walk, and he came out of the woods, and his his chest was split open.
He was just happier and come running out, big old gash right here. He's like, "Hey, what's up?"
Fortunately, it was just the skin.
Yeah.
But we had to take him in and get him stitched up. And then somehow he dislocated a toe. Talked to our vet, and really the only solution for that is you can stick a rod. I'm like, yeah, at this point he was 12. I'm not doing that. So
He really didn't care.
no, it didn't
It
bug
didn't
him.
bother him. He didn't have no pain in it.
No. But then he started getting the lumps and the bumps. And then about the same time that he was diagnosed with that hip dysplasia was when he had that incident where I thought he had maybe a brain tumor. Remember when we first started dating? And
Yep.
I thought he maybe had a brain tumor because he was having some
Droopy side.
he kind of had like some weird neurological symptoms, and I didn't know what it was. Long story short, after some diagnosis and stuff, like we didn't really know what it was. We thought maybe he had like a little bit of a stroke, but it was like, or just like a little bit of a, like Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy or something, where he like just one side of his face was a little bit droopy and he didn't chew as good over there, but didn't slow him down. He still chewed on pig ears and deer antlers, and he ate good. And up until he was about 12, he still had like amazing teeth. We never had issues with that. Like he was pretty healthy for being a pit bull boxer mix. You think he would have had all kinds of issues. Probably in the last year, we've really noticed he's like slowing down. I would say the last winter.
2 years, I'd say. Just slowing down.
Slowing down, and like he doesn't run as fast and doesn't want to get zoomies as much with the other dogs.
Yeah.
And we could notice that like his back end was getting weaker. So like we were really careful about our younger dog Mango. She wanted to play rough with him. We had to be super careful about her not getting rough with like his back end. He still got around fine, but if somebody would have slammed into his back end, like that wouldn't have been good.
But when we first got Mango, those two played like
they
crazy.
did. So, and
like
Mango's
13s.
Yeah, that was like 2 or 3 years ago. I guess that was kind of a turning point, like when we noticed he kind of doesn't even really want to play with Mango anymore. In the last couple months, I've noticed, he was losing his hearing, so starting to go deaf. And he kind of always wanted to keep an eye on me or know where I was. And when he could hear, as long as he could hear where I was, he was content. Then when he started losing his hearing, he wanted to be able to see me, even if it was from across the room. He didn't have to be right next to me. He just wanted to know where I was. And then I started noticing like he was just following me, like he just seemed confused a little bit. And then
I would say he followed you because you were his constant. So, you know what I mean? You were a safe place all the time, and he couldn't hear you anymore. So he wanted to visually see you. So when you go in the other room, he would literally follow you in there every time.
And I agree with that. I think it just got worse as he got older because he was like confused, like, they don't really know what's happening. Their body's changing and stuff like that. And so I do think it was like a security thing for him.
Yeah.
Not that he was anxious when I wasn't around. If I would leave, he was totally fine. And then there was a couple times where he like didn't want to go for a walk or come downstairs and go to work with me. And like he always wanted to be with me.
I didn't want to go downstairs anymore.
Yeah, because he didn't want to go outside. So then in the winter, he just didn't come to work, and that was fine. He stayed in his bed. I noticed he's all of a sudden now too drinking a lot of water, like obsessive. He gets up in the morning and makes a beeline for the water. And then in the last month, he had a couple accidents, and that dog has not gone to the bathroom in the house.
Never.
I mean, and it was so much urine, and it's really clear. And I was talking to my sister who's a nurse, and she's like, well, it kind of sounds like it's diabetes. And at this point, Duncan's 15, and we kind of started thinking, hey, like Duncan is probably not gonna, like, we'll have him make it through this summer and this fall, but like we're not gonna put him through another winter, and by then his back end is probably gonna be pretty bad. But after he had those couple accidents, I just started thinking about his quality of life. And then when I was in Missouri a couple weeks ago with my sister for a week, I had several client dogs, a couple rescues, and just Duncan. He was the only dog of ours that I took with us. And so I have been really, really busy lately, and so I guess I haven't been just super focused on Duncan, and plus we're home, so we kind of have a routine. But spending that whole week with Duncan in Missouri kind of really opened my eyes to his decline. And my sister had made a comment to me, and I'm actually really grateful for this. We're all sitting on the couch, and he was just snuggling with me, and he had also started his back towards his tail, not totally towards his tail, but about 3/4 of the way back. His spine started to arch, and like you could like very visibly see and feel like 3 or 4 of his vertebrae. And like his thighs didn't have as much muscle. Like he used to be jacked.
Yeah, he got skinny. Like even when I met you 5 years ago, he was still jacked. Yeah. He was still playing hard,
and still doing rebounds off the walls.
Yep.
And my sister had made a comment to me. I just said, "Oh, he's so old, like, but he's still happy." And my sister said, "Well, have you thought about like when the time is going to be?" And I have been thinking about that for 9 years and crying about Duncan dying, not realistically for the last 9 years, because I just love him so much and I didn't know how I was going to get through that. My husband actually was a really big help in the last 5 years because, as I said, pretty much since we started dating, I've been thinking Dunkin was going to die and emotional, and he was really good about like, Dunkin is fine, he's happy, look at him, like let's just enjoy him while we have him because we don't know when he's going to go, and he's healthy right now, and so like don't steal sorrow from tomorrow because he doesn't know. Like just make it a normal day, like it's just life, and then when the time comes, like the time comes.
Yep.
So he really helped me because I feel like if I wouldn't have had that, I would have been like really sad all these last 5 years, and it would have just made things worse, just in the sadness all the time, because I wouldn't have been able to enjoy him as much because I would have just been sad. And then things would have been different for him. He would know if I was being different, like why aren't we doing fun things? Like you're just sad all the time. And she's like, well, yeah, but like what if he's in pain and you don't know it? And I was like, well, I know he's in pain. He's almost 16 and like I'm almost 40 and I'm in pain. Like everybody has pain. He was on medications for those things, for some pain, and he was on allergy meds. And then he was on gabapentin, so he was on meds to help him be comfortable. Think of my grandparents, like they have aches and pains and they walk with a hitch and they're giddy up, but they still have joy. And Dunkin was still a very happy dog. When we were in Missouri, then after my sister said that, I started to like really pay attention, and I did start to notice like he's still happy, but like that luster is just gone. Like he just seemed more like, I'm just here. And that made me really sad. I was excited to bring him with me to Missouri because he loves the heat, and I wanted him to spend time like laying out in the sun. And even down there, if I wasn't out there with him, he didn't want to be laying in the sun, and that was new. There was a time down there he didn't eat. That whenever that dog doesn't eat, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
One time when we were outside for a potty break, he was walking around and he went to turn to come back inside, and his legs kind of planted, and he went to turn, and this one he picked up to move, and this one didn't move, and it like drug, kind of like this, and I'm like, okay, like that's not normal. And then my sister made a comment that she saw him once outside trying to jump up on our low deck, and she's like, it looked like his back end forgot how to work. That week I started having discussions with Joe, and he's like, well, are you sure? And I kind of explained those things, and like, you know, one of the treatments for diabetes is giving him daily injections, and he in the last couple of years has gotten not so great for the vet, which is also, you could have done anything to that dog and never worried about safety, but I think he got older and confused, and it was probably not as comfortable for him to be handled. And I'm like, I'm not giving him daily injections. And I can't imagine like living with diabetes untreated is comfortable. We also live, is that 18 stairs or how many stairs?
Probably 18, 20.
And I can't imagine him going up and down those stairs until December with his back end that's already starting to not work. And with how much he's drinking water and how much he has to go outside, he's gonna have to go up and down those a lot. And I remember having a discussion with Joe, and I said, I just feel like Dunkin does not deserve to wait until he is immobile.
Which I feel, and I've seen it, I feel a lot of people wait too long because they're putting that on them. You know, they're waiting too long, and the dog is in
Because
pain.
it's hard.
Because it's hard, but I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Think back to the dog that he was in his prime, and I also, those 2 accidents that he had in the house really got me, because when I came home, he was laying in his bed and he never would pee on the rugs. He would always go in the kitchen if it was an emergency on the linoleum.
Yep.
Because he was just a good boy.
He would too, it's funny.
But his bed was not that far from his accident, and I walked in, and right away he looked over at the pee, and it was on the other side of the counter, so I didn't even see it. And he looked over and like did this, and I'm like, what? And I looked over, and there was a big puddle, and so I felt really bad because I'm sure
I'm gonna get in trouble.
Yeah, and he did know. Some dogs don't know, but he knew. And of course, I'm like, well, if he peed in here, it was an emergency. Like he didn't, and I wasn't mad at him. I went over and pet him and told him I loved him, and I put him outside and I cleaned it up. And then it happened again, and then I was telling Joe, I'm like, I don't want him to go through what's wrong with me, what's going on with my body. I'm a bad boy because I keep going to the bathroom in the house, even though he can't help it. And I felt like he didn't deserve to go through the pain of dragging his back end around. And I feel like we were close.
We were.
I feel like we were very, very close. And I wanted him to go out when he could still go for a walk.
Yep.
And not be in miserable pain. Because if he wasn't drinking water, following me around, he was sleeping and laying in his bed. And I just was like, I can't, maybe it would have been different if we would have lived on a first story. But I also think about the opportunity for one of the other dogs to be playing and take his back end out and then put him through a horrible event and get hurt. And then now we have to make an emergency euthanasia in a traumatic experience for him. And that was a big concern for me. And so I just felt like this was the kind choice for Dunkin. And like the noble choice, to just give him some dignity. And I try to be really good about not putting human emotions on dogs because I know better. He didn't deserve to wonder or suffer until I felt like I could let him go. I think we talked about at the time that keeping him around more was literally just for us. And so when I was down in Missouri, we made the decision, and I originally thought like maybe at the end of the month, and then the more I watched him, I'm like, I think it needs to be done in the next couple weeks. So then I talked to the vet, and that's a whole nother level of unbearable grief. First coming to the decision that you're gonna do it, and then verbalizing it to your partner or your family, and then making the call to your vet and explaining why. And then when you make the appointment and you put it on the calendar, it's brutal. Things that I want to talk about is timing, because I think that's really important. From the time that I contacted the vet until Dunkin's appointment, I had about 2 weeks. And I remember when I was going through those 2 weeks feeling like this is the most unbearable thing I've ever been through. And I have been through a lot of stuff in my life. The physical pain that I felt, caring for him every day and seeing him and just knowing that the end was near. I know that he did not know, and I'm grateful for my dog behavior knowledge. Because if I didn't have that, I don't know that, this would have been 50 times harder, because I felt like I was betraying him because I'm taking care of him, but hey, I'm the one that's deciding to put you down. I'm grateful that I had the time, because it was just me and him in Missouri, other than the client dogs. But when I wasn't doing that, it was just me and him, and we went on walks, and he slept with me every night, and he got spoiled, and he got all kinds of extra treats. And then when we got home, that was another gut punch, seeing my family again and reuniting, and it's another realization that it's actually happening. And so we grieved pretty hard that night. I ended up crying so hard I woke up in the middle of the night with a migraine, and I was puking, and it was horrible. And we continued to care for Dunkin and spoil him, and my husband told me that he was going to sleep on the couch every night until Dunkin was gone, so that I could spend every last night with him. And I'm so grateful for that. My snuggle buddy, he spent
our first year of marriage, it was Dunkin, Jenny, me.
That again for 2 whole weeks, just me and him, was really special, and I'm so grateful that I had that. And I think because I had that, I can still close my eyes and feel cuddling with him, and I can feel kissing his face, because I got to spend so much time with him. Through those 2 weeks, it felt unbearable, and I felt like I almost wish we would just do it sooner to get it over with, and that's kind of how we all felt. Looking back, I'm so grateful that I had that time. It's really hard, and I don't know that everybody would feel that way. I didn't feel that way when I was going through it, but I do now, because I just got to soak up every minute I had. I was so busy with work, but every time I walked by him, I gave him a kiss or stopped to give him a little bit of a snuggle, or I gave him a treat. We just spent a lot of time together, and I'm so grateful for that. Day of our appointment, We ended up having our Dunkin's lifelong vet, Dr. Kathy Skelko from Moose Lake Vet. She came to our house, which I couldn't have done it any other way. I wanted Dunkin to go in the comfort of his own home, in his own bed, with us, where he loved to be. And so I highly recommend that if you have a vet that does that, like having them come to your home. I'm so grateful for that. It was a peaceful process, and Dunkin passed, and the whole time, one thing I want to talk about is my husband, because he loves our animals as much as I do. And when we were talking, we'd made the appointment, and we were talking about like, what are we going to do with Dunkin's body? That was a tough decision. I went back and forth. Originally, like years ago, I thought I would want his ashes, but I have his portrait, like it's huge on my thigh, so like he's always right next to me. We decided that we wanted to bury him here, and we have a couple horses and a couple other dogs buried here, and this is where Dunkin has spent so much of his life, and he loves it here. So we decided we were gonna bury him, but I also couldn't envision just putting him in the ground, so I asked my husband if he could build me something to put Dunkin in. And he built him the perfect little box. And he measured it and made it big enough to put his bed in, so that he could be buried in that. And after Dunkin was gone and we spent a few more minutes with him, Joe knew that I couldn't handle watching the process of his lifeless body being carried. So he made me go in our room. And he took care of everything and had his box ready in his bed, and then when he came and got me, Dunkin was in the bed of our side-by-side in his bed, in the box, covered up with a blanket, and he was so peaceful. That's something that I'm so grateful for, was seeing him peaceful. And I couldn't have had that if my husband would have taken care of me, and I think he just knows how important Dunkin is to me. And
I did. I knew.
And I'm not much of a crier, but I've probably cried more in the last 2 weeks than I have in my entire life. And I usually don't cry in front of anybody, and now I've cried in front of everybody. Not just in this video, but in person too. Anytime someone brings him up.
We painted the top purple.
And they painted, Joe and Zoe painted the top of his box purple, because that's my favorite color, and they wrote little messages on there. And he got buried with one of his favorite toys. I feel physical pain like I've never felt it before. It's just I've lost loved ones and whatever, but this is just like a different type of pain, of an irrational feeling of, I feel like Dunkin didn't deserve to die because he was so good. But I know that's not how it works. Everything that lives dies, except for Jesus Christ. And he didn't deserve to die either, but he did. And I keep saying, like, if being good could buy you eternity, Dunkin never would have died, because he was just that good to his core. Just not have my constant anymore. You know, he was with me for 15 years.
Yeah, remember I'm sorry, honey, but I remember we used to have fires out back when me and Jenny first started dating, and then even when we got married right away in like 3 months. But other than that, though, we used to sit back there, and he would jump in the bed of the truck and lay with us, and we'd sit in the back with a blanket, and he'd lay right there, and we'd sit by the fire.
Dunkin would lay in there cross-legged, watch the fire, and we called him King Unky Dunky. He, a little bit like educational and also just like real, because this is something that everybody has to go through. And now that we've been going through it and getting feedback from people, I think it's important to talk about it, because the pain is real and it's hard, and I'm here to tell you that it does. I don't want to say
it gets better with time. Everything does. Everything
gets better with time. It's been 2 weeks, and I was just telling Joe today, like, the pain is still as intense, and part of me feels like empty. Like, I feel he was such a big part of my life. Like, I feel like a little bit of part of me is gone.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, you had Dunkin almost to this point your entire adult life till this point.
I did. He got me through my 20s. Like, that dog probably actually saved my life a couple times. Dunkin was just such a light in my life, and it's just different. And so, like, I want everybody to know that, like, if you struggle with this, I'm more than happy to personally, like, be a sounding board or to give advice. I was just hearing from a friend that knows somebody that made an appointment for their elderly dog that was in terrible condition to get euthanized, and they canceled and rescheduled 4 times because they couldn't bring themselves to do it. And I think that could have been me if I didn't have some of the knowledge that I have about dog behavior. And I think that could have been me if I wouldn't have been able to put Dunkin first. I'm not trying to say that this person was being selfish, because I know how hard it is, and she was a widow and all alone. I can't imagine that. But it is the kind thing to do. They can't like verbally tell us, but they do tell us. And so if you're wondering if it's time because your dog seems miserable, like it might be time to have that discussion. Like I said, I'm more than happy to be a sounding board. But what I would suggest is when you're going through this, like really count on your family and be there for each other, because like it's a brutal, I just keep saying it's brutal. Like I don't know another word. I have not really ever felt like a pain like this before, or like a sadness like this before. It's just really raw. So sorry if you see me out and about and talk about Dunkin and I start crying. But also, if you have a memory of Dunkin, it would make me really happy to hear about it or see a picture or video of him. A lot of the tears that I've cried over the last 2 weeks are of extreme gratitude. Happiness, joy. Dunkin could have ended up with anybody, but I was lucky enough to get him. He turned me into the dog trainer that I am. He's the one that really made me passionate about therapy work and how much value those dogs provide to people. And so, like, me moving forward in the therapy dog world and with my mission is part of it, really to honor Dunkin. Because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be doing this. And I just want to honor his memory, and I want to keep helping more people, and I want to help more dogs, because that's what would make him happy. And that's how he got to have the life that he had. And so I know that I just need to keep doing that for more dogs.
But I also think it's a very wonderful experience to take care of a senior dog.
Oh my
Like
gosh,
when you've had a dog from a puppy to its senior year, I mean, I think that's amazing.
You're talking about like some of the extra maintenance that comes with having a senior dog.
But it's our responsibility as his caretakers, because, you know, dogs can't take care of themselves, but
I think it's a gift.
It's a gift. Yeah, it was great to like just be able to take care of him in his old age, because he took care of so many people prior.
A senior dog is hard. It's really hard watching them age and deteriorate. You know, of course, they're on meds, and we always made sure he had like 4 beds, and that like we would pick him up and take him off of things that were high, and he had to go out more frequently, and we just like he had extra care needs, and sometimes it felt like an extra burden. But then I remember we had to talk about it, and we were thinking like it's such a blessing that we've had this much time with him, because a lot of people don't get to have a dog for 15 years. And so, in Dunkin's last year of life, like he got spoiled. He went on every road trip with us, because we never knew if it was going to be his last. So he got to just, you know, be completely spoiled, and he earned it. You know, it wasn't without warrant. He made a lot of people happy and brought a lot of joy to people. I think he made a lot of dogs happy too. So anyways, I hope you guys learned some things from this. Sorry if you can't understand me because I'm a blubbering mess, but it's, like I said, it's really fresh. And I hope that over time it continues to get a little less painful. But I'm not gonna hold my breath because it sucks. Anyways, I really love my dog and I miss him. But I'm really thankful for my husband and my family and all of our staff and everybody that knew Dunkin that's been so supportive and, you know, sending messages and comments. I have read them all. I just don't quite have it in me yet to like respond to them all. So don't think I'm ignoring you. It means the world to me to read that stuff. So thank you so much for that. And please, if you have any questions or you need some advice, I'm more than happy to help you out with whatever I can.